I don't know if you can tell, but I really love doing this podcast. I get to meet the most fascinating, interesting, inspiring people and have substantive, just unbelievable conversations with them. This next conversation is with a woman who I got to meet just a little bit ago, but immediately when I met her, I knew that I needed to have her on the podcast because she is the person who you should look to if you are struggling to build your family and you're wondering and you're worried and you're having all kinds of anxiety about what happens if this doesn't work? What happens if I don't have any children? Or what happens if I only have one or only have what happens? My life will be terrible. My life will be I'm not going to be able to figure out how to find meaning anymore. Susan has found meaning and leads an incredibly full life, even though she doesn't have any children. And I hope that this episode will be one that you will listen to over and over again in terms of her positivity and the way that she just views her experiences and her outlook. I was just awed. And there's so many also practical pieces. Spoiler, listen to what she says about how she and her husband chose where they would have their burial plots. I was totally floored by that. Anyway, here's the episode. Please let me know what you think. You can always reach out by DM on Instagram or send us an email. I'm always curious for your comments. Go listen. Let me know. Hi, I'm Dr. Aimee Barron, the founder and executive director of the nonprofit I Was Supposed to Have a Baby. On this podcast, I invite different people to join me in conversations about infertility, pregnancy loss, infant loss, surrogacy, adoption, and so much more. We laugh, we cry, and we challenge the Jewish community to think differently about a topic that has been shrouded in secrecy and shame for so long. So join me as we talk away the taboo. Okay, so I'm really excited. I know I say that a lot, but everybody will bear with me. I'm really excited about having this conversation with Susan because Susan and I met through Aliyah Koenig, who is our surrogacy coordinator, consultant, whatever. She has some fancy title, which I always forget, but she's absolutely amazing at what she does. And Aliyah said to me, Aimee, I think you need to talk to Susan because she is just an absolutely phenomenal person. And she wants to tell people about what her life has been like and what it is like now. And I think it would be really powerful for your community, especially on the heels of Mother's Day. We're right near Mother's Day. And I'll sort of give a little bit of a spoiler into this conversation. Susan, you're going to do your own introduction in a second, but to let everyone know, Susan, you don't have any children. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And so now you'll understand through this conversation, because she is just really remarkable, you'll understand why I wanted to have this conversation now so that we together, I hope, will give strength and chizuk to people in the I Was Supposed to Have a Baby community who are still in a place where they don't necessarily know how their story is going to end, whether their family is going to be the size that they want, or whether they've already come to the end of their journey and it's been disappointing. And so, Susan, I'm going to stop talking now because this podcast is not about me. And please introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background, who you are, where you grow up, and maybe like just as we kind of start this conversation, maybe a little bit of a window into what you thought your life was going to be like as you were growing up.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share my journey, my story. I know it's one that isn't told a lot because there's, I guess, thankfully, not a lot of people in the community who are in our situation. But for those who are and for those who are going through it, I'm very happy to share my story and hopefully give people some hope also. So a little bit about me. I am from Chicago originally, born and bred. I went on a gap year in Israel, really, really fell in love with the country, wanted to stay as long as possible, but like a lot of people, I ended up coming back. I then went to Stern, lived on the Upper West Side for a while. So I had a taste of like New York dating life. After a few years, it was just not my thing, and I ended up moving back to Chicago. Luckily, I was able to take my job with me, but I went back to Chicago, and after 13 years of living there, very happily, I had a wonderful community in Lakeview. But I was 39. My high-tech healthcare company that I had been working for had just been bought out. A lot of transitions going on all at once, and I decided that if I didn't make Aliyah then it was never ever going to happen. So I made Aliyah in 2014. Met my husband within a month of stepping off the plane. We had a lot of
Wow.
things in common. That in of itself is a whole different podcast, but
Hold
yeah,
on. We have to do a little bit of that. You have to pause a
okay,
little bit and like just give us a little bit of that story, please.
okay.
Please.
So a little bit the story was I had gone on a single ski trip for a couple years, and I had heard about this guy, Jeremy, and then a year or two later, when I made Aliyah, one of my friends from that trip brought me to a Simchat Torah dinner at one of her friends, someone I had never met before, and Jeremy was there because he was friendly with the hostess. So when we met, I said to him, I'm like, aha, you're the famous Jeremy Sheldon. And he said to me, he's like, why do you know me and what do you know about me? So I said, I'm like, no, I went on Kenniski. We have a lot of friends in common. And he was like, oh, okay, fine. And just something that night, we instantly clicked. Like he was just very easygoing. There was just something about him, and the two of us just clicked well. So fast forward a year to the following Simchas Torah. I had brought him to a meal at my family's house, and my sister fell in love with him and said to me, you have to marry this guy. And I was like, I don't know. Jeremy's married to his job. He's so busy. I was like, I don't know. Meanwhile, I had met his parents because we had gone to pay a shiva call together to a friend of ours in Netanya. So the four of us had like a little date. We like walked around. We went for ice cream in Netanya. And a few days later, they said to Jeremy, they said, you should really be dating Susan. So we,
Oh wait, hold on.
yeah,
Meaning this whole time, this whole year, you weren't dating, you were just
no,
friends.
yeah, sorry. Yeah. We were just
Okay.
friends. But like anytime one of us hosted a meal, the other one was invited. And like we were just so much a part of each other's life as friends that it never even like dawned on us to actually like take it to a romantic level until it was pointed out to both of us separately that it was like, oh, right, now this makes sense. So once we decided that we were going to date, it was the easiest transition ever. We went from barely dating to getting engaged to getting married, all within the span of like just under a year. And
Wow.
yeah, we're coming up on
Wow.
10 years.
That's unbelievable. That's
Yeah,
unbelievable. But
yeah,
if you'll allow me just for a
yes,
moment, can you like can you take a step back and talk about like the years prior, like when you were living in Chicago
yeah.
and, the dating scene in New York, obviously when, right after you graduated from college or maybe when you were still in college, like did you like I heard you say,
Hmm.
you were very involved with your work and your job and life was very, very fulfilling. Like, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more about that piece. And also, like, was there any angst at that point of like, will I ever find the person? Will I ever have a family? Like,
Yes.
what were those emotions that those years for you?
It was turmoil, basically. Um, like everything was great. Look, thankfully, I have a wonderful family, very supportive. Um, and I had a great life in terms of friends. Um, Dating for some reason was impossible. Um, I, I just have so many stories that like I don't even know where to start with them. But it was like one roadblock after the next. It was, I would be set up, and for one reason or another, it wouldn't work. And then one reason or another, it wouldn't work. And I did all the right things. I was on all the dating websites. I basically said yes to almost everyone, just because you never know, and sometimes. So I really tried to be open minded. And for some reason, it just was not working. I had like boyfriends here and there, um, but I, everyone in my family got married young. I think maybe my cousin who was older than I was maybe got married at 28, and that was like ancient. So here I am in my 20s, slowly creeping up to 30s. Uh-oh, I'm over the 30 line. Um, I I found it just got very hard, and like no matter what I did, it was just met with a lot of resistance. Um, so it was fun when it worked and like when I had a boyfriend, because it was like, okay, so because everyone else got married young, I just assumed I would also get married young and have a family right away and raise my family, and there's my life. Um, I do come from a large family also. Like, thank God my brother has a lot of kids, my sisters. So, and I have a lot of first cousins also who also have a lot of kids. And now, as the generations go on, we just keep getting bigger and bigger, thank God. Um, so that I just assumed that I was on that same natural path. I didn't realize that God had a totally different plan for me. And I didn't really know how to adjust to it. Like I really tried my best. And a lot of people in the community would say, like, you're not trying hard enough, you're too picky, there's nothing wrong with this guy. Why didn't you want to go out with him again? And very often it was like, well, he doesn't want to go out with me. Why is he not getting this conversation? I'm like, I was open to it, but like they said no, because, men have all these lists. So like he didn't have to really commit because, well, I have three more girls on my list. So it didn't, so Susan wasn't 100% of everything. So, I'm like, it takes two. So it was really like very difficult. Um, and I think it was just kind of at that point where I was like, I am just done. Oh, so I'd actually said at one point, which is appropriate for this conversation, I said to my mom, I was like, if I am 35 and not married, I'm having a baby on my own. Because at that time it was like just starting to become a thing. So I was like, even if I don't find my partner, I'll at least have a child. So, so it was,
By the way, just by the
yeah.
way, I actually said the same thing internally.
Did
For
you?
me, it
Yeah.
was I ended up getting married at 27. For
Hmm.
me, in my head, for whatever reason, the number 30 was in my head. And I was like,
Hmm.
if I get to 30 and I'm not married, I'm having a kid on my own. Like I was like, I so desperately
Hmm.
wanted to be a mother that I felt like that was but like it's funny because I had the
Yeah.
same exact like thought running through my head.
Yeah. Like there was no reason not to. And I was like, just because I can't find a partner doesn't mean that I have to deny myself a family. So I was like, people have done it. It was like starting to become a thing. And I had a friend in Chicago who had also done it. I talked to her. I did a little bit of research. And then just as kind of the years went on, like I had actually been dating someone. So I thought, I'm like, okay, so I'll get married. It won't matter. And then we broke up and I was around 35. And I was like, I am not in the right headspace to have a baby. And then I don't know, it just didn't happen, which was
Yeah.
fine. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was definitely like, on the one hand, I was very happy because like I had a really nice social life. Like the only thing that was missing was a partner or a spouse or whatever. So So yeah, I went through that whole dating cycle.
And did you get to a place where you thought like, okay, like it's just not happening. It's not happening for me.
Mhm.
And you already had passed 35 and like I'm guessing that Aliyah was kind of that like another piece of that puzzle like as you got to be older.
Yes, exactly. So when I think I started going on this kind of ski trip when I was probably very late 30s, probably 37, 38. And yeah.
What's the name of this ski trip?
Oh, so it unfortunately since has closed, but it was called Kenniski.
Okay.
And it was run by actually my former roommate from Stern. We had been in touch all these
Okay.
years, and she kept telling me, she's like, you have to come on this trip. You have to come on this trip. There's so many great quality people. She's like, you have to come. So it took her a few years of convincing, but finally I came. And it just kind of opens up a new world to me that it was like, oh, like, you're in Chicago and people don't want to date you because you're not in New York or you're not in LA or Florida. It's like the whole geographically undesirable. But
Yeah.
like once you're in Israel, that was like, and a lot of the people who would go on the trip were Israeli or European who are in Israel all the time anyway, because it's, 4 or 5 hours to get back and forth. It's not a big deal.
Yep.
So yeah, so that trip made it much, much easier for me to make Aliyah. And it was like, you know what? I was like, I've tried everything that I could possibly do in America to find a spouse. I got to try it in Israel. I was like, and if it doesn't work, then I'll figure something out. But I was like, I have to try. And yeah,
And at that point, it was like the idea at 35 of like, I'm going to have a kid at 35 if I'm not married yet.
yeah,
That got put off because you were focused on, oh, wait, like actually, maybe there's this other avenue, this whole other world socially that I could get integrated with and make aliyah. And so I'll push that off and see what happens otherwise.
right. So that was actually one aspect. And then the other one was that a lot of people in Israel, by the time I made Aliyah, which was in 2014, they were already having babies on their own. And it was like a huge phenomenon in Israel. So I was like, oh, if I go to Israel and I don't meet someone, then I can really have a baby on my own, because it just seemed like it was so much easier to do it in Israel than it did in America. So that was kind of like my logic. And like, obviously, like I loved Israel. I've always been Zionistic. I grew up in Bnei Akiva. So like Aliyah was always like on the map for me. It just was a matter of when. So those were like the two driving points. I would say that it's like I wanted to find a spouse, and if I didn't, I would have at least, maybe had a baby. Um,
And it was easier there. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it makes complete sense.
yeah,
Okay, so now take us back to Jeremy, and the two of you both have independently have this realization. Oh, by the way, actually, maybe we should actually do this together.
yeah,
I love
exactly.
it.
Yes. So it was just easy. It was like this light bulb went on, and it was like, oh, right, like why haven't we seen this before? Like we just weren't focused. And I remember I called my cousin to say, oh, by the way, I'm dating this guy, and I start telling her about him. She goes, aren't you talking about Jeremy? And I was like, yeah. I was like, but how do you know his name? She's like, Susan, you talk about him all the time. I was like, no, I
Wow.
don't. She said, yes, you do. She said, every time you have a meal or you're going to him or you're going out and like my mind was blown. I was like, what do you mean I talk about him all the time? She's like, you talk
I
about him
love
all the
it.
time. I know exactly who you're talking about. Like, oh,
It's
okay.
unbelievable. It's
Yes.
so great. It's
Yes.
such a so great. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so
Yeah.
so from friendship to dating to marriage was very quick.
It was very quick because, like, you know what? I was 41 at this point. Jeremy's 3 years younger. And I said to him, I'm like, listen, I was like, if we're doing this, then you have to be serious. I said, you cannot decide in 6 months from now, oh, I don't know, maybe. I was like, we don't have that luxury anymore. I said, so if you know that this is it, then great, I'm happy. And thank God, like once he was on board and like really committed, it was like, it was just the easiest feeling. Like it wasn't even a feeling of relief that like, oh my God, I finally found someone. It was just like, oh yeah, I was meant to marry Jeremy. That makes perfect sense. Um, and it was just like, it was just so natural that, like, I didn't even think about any of the, like, past, trials and tribulations or whatever it was. I didn't even think about it. It was just like, okay, so here I am. Now I'm moving forward. And it, thank God.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Thank God, it's so great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, look, you said to him right away, you said
Mhm.
like, you've got to be serious about this because we don't have time. And I'm guessing what you meant by that is I'm 41 and if this is going to be serious, like we want to have a family and like I'm 41.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, we don't really have a lot of time to, like, I don't know. But, like, really, there were no games. Once he was committed, he was committed. That was it. We're moving forward. We're booking, and we planned our wedding. And but yeah, we also knew from the beginning that we were going to have to try to have kids immediately. Like, we didn't have the luxury of, oh, let's take a year to ourselves. Let's really get to know each other. We were like, no, we're like, let's just start.
I was going to say you already knew each other. So technically speaking, you skipped that step, but yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But, like, just, being older and then, living on your own and then having to adjust to someone new in your space. Like, but I was
Of
like, we
course.
don't have time. I was like, let's just, like, throw as many kids as we are blessed with into the mix and let's figure this out. But yeah.
Okay. And so what I mean, which obviously makes sense.
Yeah.
What happened next?
So, uh, um, my father actually passed away 2 weeks after our wedding. He had been sick before and he didn't make it to the wedding. So I was really back and forth, back and forth.
I'm sorry.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead. Keep
No,
going.
it's okay.
Keep going.
So I had been traveling back and forth, and we were really planning on starting to have a family right away. And then after my father passed away, Jeremy was like, I think you need to take a bit of a breather. He said, you moved, you got married, moved, your father died. He's like, all you need left are, like, to pay taxes, and you've gone through, like, all the stages of life. He's like, just relax. He's like, and when the time is right, we'll start. So we waited, like, a little bit, but, like, maybe 6 months or so. And I was like, we don't have that luxury again. So we immediately started with IUI treatments. But even the process here of finding a doctor, going through the motions, going through the whole, I guess, the process, it was really, really hard. Like, people come here because they think that it's so much easier, it's paid for, it's this, it's that. We hit a ton of roadblocks. Some of the doctors were quite nasty to us. And it was like a
In,
really,
in, in what
yeah.
way? Like, why were they nasty?
So anyone that we went to go see immediately said to us, you guys are too old. I wouldn't even bother trying. And
Oh, God.
we were like, but we're here. We have to try. And one doctor specifically said to us, he's like, you're never going to have a baby. Why are you sitting in my office?
Oh,
And
my
I
God.
said to him, I'm like, because we at least have to try. I was like, we can't just give up, like, right out of the gate. I said, we have to try. And he goes, oh, well, that's the answer I wanted to hear. So, okay, as long as you're here, let's do this. I was like,
Oh,
okay, great.
that's like, I'm like disgusting,
Yeah,
actually. It's
yeah,
disgusting.
yeah, it really was. So I walked out of his office incredibly upset. And I was like, Dafka, because he was so negative about it, I'm like, we're going to have a baby. Just like,
Of
I wanted
course.
to prove him wrong because I was like, you're so mean that I was like, anyway, we switched doctors, we switched hospitals, we switched everything. But eventually I found an amazing doctor who was calm and walked me through the process, walked Jeremy through the process, was hopeful. He said, he's like, you know what? You never know, but you have to try. So he said, I'm going to help you through everything. So that was wonderful to have that kind of support. And we did 4 rounds of IUI. Um, and then on the fourth round, it took, but I'm going to use that in air quotes. It took in the sense that there was an embryo, and I honestly don't remember. There may have been a heartbeat very briefly, or I don't remember if there was just no heartbeat and the baby just never grew. So I had been scheduled for a DNC, and my body naturally pushed the baby out, or the embryo out.
Oh,
It was
I'm so sorry.
it was the most excruciating physical pain. I'm like, this is what labor is. I was like, this has to be labor, because it was just like I was like writhing on the floor. I was miserable. And it was the first day of Sukkot. So, it's not like we could just like hop in a taxi and like go to Shari Tzedek or whatever. So we actually called Mada and Hatzalah or whoever it was, and they took us to the hospital, and all the doctors there were fabulous, wonderful. Whatever the OBGYN did to me fixed me, and I felt so much better. And that was like, I don't know what to do with the experience after that. It was like, okay. So we came home, went back to bed. I woke up the next day for lunch and I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. So we went to our host for a barbecue.
Oh my
Cause like,
goodness. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
I just like, I guess cause I knew that I already like was miscarrying, that like it was sad, but I don't think it was like dramatic. I don't know, but I woke up, I'm like, all right, I'm hungry. I'm like, let's just go for lunch and I'll rest later. So we did, and I, I don't even think that I even ended up resting. I think I just like pushed forward, and then I don't even know how much time had elapsed. But then we started doing IVF right after that. So it was like my last round of IUI and my first round of IVF that also, let's say, took. So I think the first embryo made it to 5 weeks, and then the second one made it to 9 weeks. So
Oh,
the first time we went for an ultrasound, they're like, okay, there's a heartbeat, like it's weak, but it's there. So I was like, okay, so like, I had a little bit of nausea, so I was like, all right, that's a good sign. Um, and then we went for another follow-up, and the ultrasound technician said to us in Hebrew, obviously, she said, Ein dofek, which means no heartbeat. So I was
yeah,
like, I think those are the two worst words in the Hebrew language are Ein dofek.
yeah,
Yes, until October 7th, and all of our Chayalim started dying. And then it said, Hutar lepersum, meaning like cleared for publication. I was like, okay, fine. Those are the four worst words in the Hebrew
yeah,
language that
yeah,
essentially are saying the same thing, but like, I, I'm like,
yeah.
all these words are just horrible and triggering and just like, you don't know what's coming next. Um, so I think the second time I was a bit more bummed about it because it was like, okay, I made it to 9 weeks. Like maybe I'm out of the danger zone, so to speak. Like maybe this one will actually take. And so when we found out, like I was just like, ugh, not again. And I found out that according to Israeli law, if you're going through fertility treatments, you're allowed X amount of sick days, X amount of time off. If you have surgery, you're allowed X amount of time off. So this time when I had the scheduled DNC and it actually like right, so I actually had that and I didn't, abort the baby naturally, which I hate that word, but that's a different thing. Um,
Ah,
yeah,
I think all of us in this world or who have lived through pieces of this world have a lot to say about that
yes,
word. Yeah,
yeah. I was like, we need to come up with a new word because abortion is
yeah,
not the right connotation. But so my
yeah.
body didn't naturally, abort the baby. So I did go for the DNC. And after that, I allowed myself about a week of healing because I didn't know that legally that's what I was entitled to. So I took it, I relaxed, I went for a massage, I really like pampered myself, and I really allowed myself to heal and to figure out like what we wanted to do next. Um,
Can I ask
yeah,
you how was two things.
yeah,
One is how was Jeremy during all of this?
yeah.
What were his emotions, going through all of this together with you?
Hmm.
Um I'll ask you the second question after.
Okay,
How yeah.
sure. So he was amazing throughout all of this, even from the get-go. He is not a fan of needles. So he said to me from the get-go, he said, I want you to know if I had to do everything that you're doing, all the shots, all the blood draws, everything, he said, we would not have a baby ever. He said, there is no way that I would do half of the stuff that you're doing. So he said from the beginning, he said, anytime you want to stop, the, he said, it's your call. He said, I'm willing to go along with whatever you want to go along with, but when you're ready, he said, you just say the word. So it was hard for him also because he also comes from like a very close knit family, and he's very close with his nieces and nephews, and we're both very maternal and paternal people. Like we love babies, we love children. So I thought like if anyone on the planet deserved to have a baby, it would have been the two of us. Like I think we would have been good parents. But it just, like we said, it just wasn't in the cards, but it's fine. But the whole time he was not like he wasn't stressed about anything. Like, he was excited, when like it was potential and, okay, great. There is a heartbeat, so that's good. So let's just, keep moving. So he was obviously sad when it didn't happen. But he took it in stride and said, okay, he's like, we'll go forward. We'll keep trying. Yeah. So I mean, still is very supportive, but back then he was, he came with me to a lot of appointments. Um, and yeah,
But he wasn't,
yeah.
it's interesting, like just in the way you're describing it, right? How the
Hmm.
two of you both were so much on the same page the whole time, but
Hmm.
also how he really gave you this like gift, so to speak, and said like, I'm not, it's the pressure of having a child is not coming from me, even though, we both really want this. Like
Yeah.
you tell me if it becomes too much, like you let me know. And
Yeah.
I think, it's not always the case that everyone is on, the same page. So I think that that's, something beautiful. And I know we'll
Yeah.
hear more as you share more about,
Yeah.
the rest of the story. I'm also curious in the meantime, like whether, I mean, now as you're sharing it, it's sort of
Hmm.
like very matter of fact. And also
Hmm.
to be clear, like the way you're like, I had a miscarriage and then we went to like our like meal for Chag. Like, but like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people make the assumption that like,
Hmm.
oh, when you have a miscarriage or like, it's just like your life needs to stop and that things like the grief is so heavy and that like you need to take the time, but not everybody feels that way. And also it's not necessarily even helpful for people to kind of like dwell on it and like stay in their bed and like ponder and think as opposed to like getting up and doing and like
Hmm.
moving, like maybe going back to work, whatever it is. Like everybody deals with pain and grief differently, and there's
Yeah.
no right or wrong way to do it. So I so appreciate the fact that you just shared that in just like your real experience and didn't try to like qualify it, because
Hmm.
people need to know, like we now like we talk about infertility and pregnancy loss and all of these things with this kind of like heaviness
Hmm.
almost, but for everyone it isn't so heavy all the time and it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be. So
Hmm.
I really appreciate that.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah. It's in my nature to not be depressed anyway. Like, I often liken my bouts of depression, like almost like a stomach flu. Like, I'll be in bed for 24 hours and then I'll snap out of it. Like, my brain isn't wired that way. That's not how my body chemistry works, thankfully. Because I mean, I could see where it would really let people spiral, and
Yeah.
you have to grieve it. But I think because I had the prep time, and then like once the actual physical pain was over, it was like, okay, now I can breathe again, and now I'm not in pain, so now my appetite is back. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And also, if I can ask, I'm
yeah.
curious, like, who knew in your lives that you
Hmm.
were going through this? And like beyond Jeremy, and did you get support from people? Like, I'm
Hmm.
curious who else, Or did you not talk about it at all?
So, my mom knew and my in-laws knew. Um, and I think all of our oh, you know what? All of our siblings knew actually. We did tell them. I don't, it's funny. I don't really remember having like actual conversations. It was more like WhatsApp messages of like, okay, guys, going in for like round 3, wish us luck. But I don't remember there being any like formal discussions.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it was just more like, okay, like I don't think they wanted to pry. I think they just wanted to be like, we're here if you need us, you know where to find us, but like, share whatever and don't share whatever. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yes. And also there's a huge community. Like I would sit in the Shari Tzedek waiting room and the Hadassah waiting room with I can't countless other women. And I think it was even at Shari Tzedek that there was like a basket of names that like you could pick up a name and you can daven for someone and then you can leave your name and
Wow.
have someone daven for you. Like it was
Wow.
just it was just like
Wow.
shocking to me because to me like I said I come from a very large family, so it's like okay, you get pregnant, you have a baby, like you don't realize that it's not necessarily such a natural thing and it's not such like an easy thing to go through, that you're sitting in this room with all these women and you automatically feel supported. So I never like felt alone in the process. I never felt lonely. So even if I didn't talk about it, it wasn't like I'm not talking about it because I don't want to burden anyone or like no one else is going to understand. When when we told people that we were trying, everyone came up to me. I had a miscarriage, I had this, I now thankfully have X amount of children, but like in between child 2 and 3 I lost a baby. So like you just realize how common it is. So I really never felt lonely during the process. It was just more of like here we go again. Like it was a little frustrating and it's like you don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No,
yeah.
I'm just so struck by this
Mhm.
image of like the basket of names in the IVF clinics. Like I mean, in America, like such a thing would never happen.
Right.
Obviously, like there's a very big difference between, when you're dealing with when you're davening, when you're praying for someone, right? Like you
Mhm.
write their Hebrew names and it's not like their actual like legal name. It's like their name, son of or daughter of like
Right.
their mother. So like you don't actually know who the person is. So there is that anonymity there.
Yes.
But like, I mean, where else except for Israel does that exist? Like nowhere. I'm just so struck by that.
Yeah, it was really amazing that, and they would be like, okay, I'll daven for you, you daven for me. But yeah, and also there's no such thing as HIPAA in Israel. They just, everyone just knows everything about everyone and it doesn't matter because, you're all going through the same thing anyway. So
It's like such a classic Israeli thing. Yeah.
yes, it really
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah,
take us back. So
yeah.
you just went through your second loss.
Mhm.
Um, where where were you at that point? What were you guys thinking?
Um, I think we were thinking that we would try one more time, or I'm actually trying to think back because it was so long ago that maybe the first round of IVF didn't work, but the second round of IVF worked, quote unquote, because at one point the doctor said to me, oh, you had a molar pregnancy, and then you can't try now for another 3 to 6 months. So I was like, first of all, like, I can Google what a molar pregnancy is, but I don't fully understand what that means. I was like, if there's a heartbeat, was it really a molar pregnancy? I was like, I don't really understand anything. Nothing was really explained. But the only thing that really stuck in my head was you can't try now for another 3 to 6 months. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that takes me into age like 43, 44 already. And I was like, I think this is the point where we kind of stop. We had talked about,
Can I,
yes, sorry, go ahead.
Susan, can I
Yeah,
stop you just for a second?
yeah.
Can you, for people who don't know what a molar pregnancy is, can
Mhm.
you explain just a little bit for them?
So actually, to this day, I still don't fully understand it. Um,
Oh, all right. I will do my best.
Yeah,
And even though I am a physician,
yeah,
I don't think I've looked up the definition of molar
yeah,
pregnancy in a while, but I'm going to try my best.
yeah.
And I'll put the definition in the show notes in case I get it wrong, which I
Okay.
might. But the general premise is that it's a pregnancy that's not viable in the sense that it's never going to grow into a healthy baby, but these cells are um, they tend to multiply very quickly.
Hmm.
And even when your levels, when that pregnancy is taken out, when the embryo is taken out, they're worried that there may be some cells that are left behind, and that if you try to get pregnant again, that it might sort of reactivate those cells and they might multiply very, very quickly and could actually be dangerous. I'm doing I think I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, but the
Yeah.
bottom line is that
Hmm.
there medically, doctors say that they want to kind of keep that at bay
Hmm.
for 3 to 6 months before it's then safe again to try, because they want to try to have make sure that all of those cells are eliminated.
That actually makes sense. So I would imagine that you described it very well. Um,
We'll
yeah,
find out. Somebody will
yeah.
fact check me after this and let me
Okay,
know. But
good.
okay,
Yeah.
so I apologize that I interrupted, but
No, not
like
at all.
you
I'm glad
saying,
you did. Yeah.
you got to this place where it was, supposedly a molar pregnancy, then the
Hmm.
doctors told you needed to wait.
Yeah. So I think it was
Okay.
at that point that we were just like, by the time it's like we've already done this, I would say twice. We really did it, 6 times. Um, my body wasn't getting any younger. Um, and and we were happy. And, Jeremy and I discussed what our life would look like without children. And we were fine. We said, we're both big, big travelers. Like we are on planes as often as we can be. And we're always planning like a next adventure. So we said we take the opportunity to to travel. We can take the opportunity to do anything that we want in the world. We can pick up and move if we wanted to. Like we don't have to worry about the kids starting school at a certain time. We don't have to worry about tuition. So it was just like all these things that were like, a little bit of like a consolation prize, but we were really okay with that consolation prize because the process to get a child was just so wearing on both of us that it was just like, you know what? We're good. We're happy together, thankfully. We have a huge family that we have a lot of nieces and nephews, and now we actually have a great, great niece.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah,
Wow.
yes, this is what happens when everyone gets married young and has babies right away. So we're we're very blessed. We're very happy. So we spoil them and we treat them like they're ours and we fight over like who gets to hold the baby first. So we love it. Our lives are very complete. There's nothing that feels lacking or empty or like we never really look back and say like, oh, chaval, that like it didn't happen. Um, we just, between Corona, between October 7th, it was just, it's to bring a child into this world and then just have it not have a normal life for 6, 7 years. It's a lot. And also, we realized one of the other main reasons that we stopped is that as we were getting older, we realized this child, if we were to have one, would be an only child. And when it's like in its prime, 20, 21, 25, whatever it is, it would be stuck taking care of elderly parents, which is not fair to that child. Like we would have no one else to lean on. It would be responsible. This child would want to be going off to college or traveling the world or whatever it is. And then it's like you're saddled with two parents. We're like, that's not fair to this kid. So that was also part of it that like, we could be as selfish as we want to, but long term, that really would have been a big issue. So, and we would have felt terrible.
Hi, everyone. It's Amy. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say that if talking away the taboo means something to you, if you've listened to an episode and felt less alone, more seen, or more understood, Please support us so we can continue doing this important work. Everything we offer, this podcast, our support groups, our resources, all of them are completely free. And that's intentional, actually, because we never want someone to have to choose between getting help and affording it. But truthfully, we can't do this without your help. So if you're in a position to give, even just a little, it really helps keep us going. It helps someone else find the support that they need too. So please donate at iwassuppose2haveababy.org/donate. It's really easy and it really makes a difference. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being part of this community.
We want to, but long term, that really would have been a big issue. So, and we would have felt terrible.
You know what? I'm
Mm,
so struck by like the real like selflessness,
mm,
just the like taking yourselves almost out of the equation and saying, w- like, we're already 44, you're already 43, 44. What would this look like for
mhm,
someone we would want to bring into the world? I think, many people, look, everybody makes choices for their own lives.
mhm,
And like my job is to support and hold people in whatever choices they make. But I think that there are many people who take completely the opposite approach, who are like,
mhm,
I've been wanting to be a parent forever, and I'm going to do whatever I can because I'm going to feel empty unless I do. And for some
mhm,
people, if it doesn't work naturally, so to speak, they consider donor eggs or donor sperm
mhm,
or even a donor embryo or adoption or fostering. And so, but what I'm hearing you say is that I want to make sure I'm not putting words in your mouth, but what
yeah,
I'm hearing you say is that there maybe was a point where you considered some of those other options,
yes,
but
mhm,
putting the travel and the fact that your life was so full and that you could pick up and do whatever you want, the other piece that stuck with you was what you would be saddling an only child with if you
mhm,
decided to go forward with any of those other options.
right. No, that's 100%. So we looked into surrogacy. We actually had two people offered to be surrogates, and we didn't want to do it because they were also like in their 30s or 40s. And I was like, what if it's the embryo that's wrong? Like, what if it's not my body that can't hold the baby? What if it's the embryo, which means that they would miscarry? I was like, I can't put someone through that. So we said, thank you very much, but no. Um, Someone had recommended donor eggs to me, and I just immediately at the time rejected it. Looking back, I probably should have explored it a bit more, but my initial reaction was if it's not my DNA, then it's not my baby. And I know it's my body that nurtures it. I know it's my blood. But ultimately, the DNA, like that baby is not going to look like me. It might look like Jeremy, but it wouldn't necessarily look like me. And I don't know that I would have been able to live with that. We had looked at fostering, we had looked at adoption, but I think by the time we even got into all that stuff, we had aged out of the system in Israel. I don't remember the exact rules and like what the deadlines are, but or what the, like what the age get limits are, but I think we had already aged out of the system. So, and we just decided we're like, you know what, if it's not going to be ours, like then it probably just not for us and like let's just, I it sounds terrible, like let's just cut our losses and move on. I don't
No,
mean it
I,
to
I
be
mean,
so harsh.
no, look,
Mhm.
I think, if you and I had done, I'm guessing
Yeah.
that if you and I had done this interview around that time,
Hmm.
I'm there would have been a different tenor to the conversation because you're now so many years past that and you've created and you live a very, very full life.
Mhm.
And so whatever I'm guessing that whatever the not even the naysayers, but the grief at having to stop,
Mhm.
like at this point, the way you're speaking about this, it's almost like that grief is there and but it's in the background. And of course it doesn't go away because I'm sure people who meet you now, like make assumptions about your life. If they're meeting you for the first time, they make
Yeah.
assumptions that you have many kids or maybe even grandkids at this point and you don't. And so then there has to be some sort of like explanation. But the way you and I are having this conversation right now, like, you're like, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
my life is amazing."
Yes.
Am I reading it wrong?
No, not at all. You're 100% right. People do make assumptions, and one of the first questions people ask me is, "How many kids do you have?" And then I have to say, "Well, we don't have any." So for a while, we had a dog. So I was able to like pivot the conversation and say, "Well, we don't have any kids, but we have a dog." And then the dog passed away, and I was like, "Oh, like how am I going to answer this question now?" It's like so depending on who asks it, sometimes like I will tell them a little bit of the story, but most people I'm just like, it just wasn't in the cards. And then it makes them feel awkward and it makes them feel bad. So it's like I'm almost comforting them that it's like, no, 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 we're okay with it. And
Yeah.
I honestly think the worst thing people can do, like with me, is pity me and pity us for not having kids. We're like I said, we're fine with it. And actually, there was a situation a few weeks ago when we were talking about burial plots in Israel because Jeremy and I have burial plots, and we're being buried after 120 years next to his brother
Amazing.
and sister-in-law. And someone said, like, why did you choose to be buried next to them? Like, what, you find your own spots because we have plots in Beit Shemesh and we live in Jerusalem. So they were like, well, there are plots in Jerusalem. Why don't you just have those? And we said, we're like, well, we don't have kids. So we want to make sure that at least someone will come visit us. And that was like the biggest conversation killer. Like, no one knew what to say. And this is amongst my family. No one knew what to say. No one knew how to respond. And then, like, I felt bad for making it awkward for them. But the truth is, if we don't have kids, that means we don't have grandkids. That means we don't have great grandkids, which means like no one will come visit us. So, I was kind of laughing about it because like to us it's logic. So like at least our nieces and nephews will come visit us. But like they didn't know how to respond to it. So I was like, "Oh no." I'm like, "Don't pity me." I was like, "We're fine." So uh, but like sometimes these things come up and then like you kind of have to explain and.
I you know what? It's
Yeah.
such a like stark, like like that like idea of like where are we going to be buried?
Yeah.
I don't think most people think about it that way
Mhm.
because first of all, some people just like can't go there. Like they can't, like their mortality is very like difficult
Right.
to discuss, and like they don't even, like I can't have a conversation with my mother about any of these things. Like even right now, like
Yeah.
she, like every time I try to bring up anything about like wills or whatever, like she immediately shuts down the conversation. Like some
Right.
people are just like that, and that's totally fine. But
Right.
it's it's so, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Like
Yeah.
we have a tradition in Judaism that we go visit the graves of the people who have passed. Like
Mhm.
often we do it around their yard site, like when it's the anniversary of their death, or we do it around holiday time.
Mhm.
And like, yeah, practically, like
Yeah.
you want people to not have to go out of their way
Right.
to come and see you.
Which we laugh because like we're very morbid about like life in general. Like our wills are already in order. Like we have everything. But I think these are things that we do need to think about. But also when
Yeah.
we were buying apartments or just all these legal things, we're like, all right, as long as we're dealing with legal things, let's just get our wills done. So and then
Yeah.
like that kind of became a thing. So we're overly prepared people is really what it is. Yeah.
No, I just think it's really
Yeah.
remarkable, honestly. And
Yeah.
but like in a very I like, okay, practical. Yes, practical. I'm like
Yeah.
fine, but just very sensible and really just thinking about like that, there is life after. Like I think a lot of
Yes.
people kind of can't see beyond their own lifespan and that there is life after and like how wonderful. Like
Yeah.
it would like looking down from heaven from Shemayim, like it would give you such nachas to know and see like your nieces and your nephews and grandnieces and like I
Yes.
just think it's like it's just so heartwarming. Like yeah, I'm like, I'm just smiling thinking about it. And it's such a
Yeah.
morbid topic. It's like
Right.
ridiculous.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
I'm curious also, like it's
Mhm.
making me think just about like mortality and making me think about like faith and God and sort
Mhm.
of like your relationship to Amuna and like all of the during all of these years. Like, look,
Mhm.
for you, you're a person who your life didn't turn out the way you thought it might.
Right.
And I wonder, like, what has been your relationship and the way you think about like God and religion in regard to all of this and where you
Mhm.
are sitting right now?
Sure. So I always felt that God had my back. I've just been in certain situations and like sometimes it's like something stupid. It's like a synchronicity or it's a coincidence. And it's like, oh, that was totally mina shamayim. Like that had God written all over it. That had the universe written all over it. So, and I was also taught growing up that God has a plan for you. And, you can't see it because you're in, like you're in the, you can't see the forest through the trees because like you're in it right now. So you can't see the bigger picture. And God always does good. So even if you don't get what you want, there's a very good reason why. So, you might not see it now, you might not see it in 5, 10, 15 years, but eventually, as part of the bigger picture, you'll see why this didn't happen. It could be anything from like not getting a job that you really wanted, not marrying the person that you thought you were going to marry. So it can really apply to any situation. I don't think I ever lost faith in God per se. I occasionally lost faith in man. And I think like some of the like halachot surrounding certain things are just like, I don't even know. Like I can't even think of a specific example, but it was more like, okay, I want to do things this way, but halacha says this. And I'm like, well, halacha is a man, not a woman who's going through all of this. So that's what you're deciding halacha as. And you're not really factoring in the person who's actually experiencing something. So that was kind of where my frustrations with religion would lie. But like God himself or herself, however you want to define God, like I think God and I are good. Um, yeah.
Was it were the frustrations around like being a single woman or being being someone who doesn't have children and then like halacha Jewish law like not allowing for flexibility in there like or was it something like totally separate?
So I think actually my frustration, it probably wasn't even on halacha. I think it's on like the community and that it is so focused on like everything about Judaism is family focused. So if you're single, it's really hard to stay from and to stay observant and want to keep things. It's like, how many times do I have to light candles by myself? How many times do I have to make kiddush by myself? It's like that's frustrating. For me, on occasion, like on Simchat Torah, when they have Kol Na'arim, like that's like sometimes that's kind of like hard to watch. That it's like you have all these kids going, and then it's like, oh, I don't have kids, so like not everything kind of like speaks to you and is relevant to you in Judaism, and that's kind of a big bummer because like everything communal is all about family. So if you don't have a family, it's a very isolating religion. So
Yeah.
so I think maybe that's where my frustration lied rather than like within halacha, which is probably why I couldn't think of an example. Um, but I think it was more like community based of like, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I think Kol HaNa'arim, by the way, for people who are not familiar, is a time on Simchas Torah, one of our holidays, when um, Simchas Torah is the celebration of the Torah that God gave us, and it's basically one of the moments on the morning of Simchas Torah is basically the rabbi, the cantor, whomever it is, like kind of unfurls this massive tallis, and all the children in the community run underneath the tallis, and it's this beautiful time where there's like a blessing given to all the children of the community. I also, actually, Susan, I also found it incredibly, incredibly painful
Yeah.
during my years of when I was struggling to build my family, when I
Hmm.
was dealing with infertility and lots of miscarriages. And to be honest with you,
Yeah.
even though I have 5 children, thank God, I cry every single Simchas Torah when
Do
Kol
you?
Hana'arim comes around. So
Yeah.
yeah, the communal aspect of our religion,
Hmm.
in that, in the real emphasis on family and children and lidor vador, like generation to generation and
Yeah.
passing things on, and the focus is for people who don't have or are still trying to have. It's really hard.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you still cry. I'm sorry. It's really, yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I
PTSD.
think that, yeah, it's
Yeah.
100% PTSD,
Yeah.
100%, but I think that there is, like, there is something difficult there, and, like, you
Yeah.
know, there is nothing, on some level, like, there's almost like there's nothing to do about it, from that perspective, and
Yeah.
that Kol HaNa'arim is like a piece of the Simchas Torah service that is going to continue to exist. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
we're not going to say like, oh, we're going to do it because it's going to hurt the people who are dealing with infertility, but instead, actually, what a lot of communities have started to do is they've started to share like a fertility prayer for people who are struggling before they actually do that specific aliyah,
I love that.
to kind of say like, hey,
Hmm.
you know, this is an incredibly joyous time and look how amazing, and
Yeah.
that there are people that are still struggling in our midst, and like, let's not forget
Yeah.
about them.
We see you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's very powerful, but
Yeah.
I no, I deeply appreciate that.
Yeah.
I guess, like, as we're winding down here,
Hmm.
I'm so, like, I'm so just taken with like, your your life, and the life that let me say that differently. I'm so taken with just the way you've chosen to live your life in this, like, these things have happened to me, and like, they weren't great, and they were really hard and
Yeah.
terrible at the time, and like, my life is so full now, and I try to enjoy and relish every piece of it, and so I guess, like, my last question for you is, for the people out there that are still very much in the midst of this,
Hmm.
who are still struggling, who don't know if their story is going to end with a baby or not,
Hmm.
like, what do you say to them?
I would say just keep the faith and keep trying, um, because you really never know. And if it doesn't happen, then just try to reframe and realize that there's so much more to life than the path that society and the community puts you on. Um, like, I know that everyone wants to be, most people want to be parents, but if it's not in the cards, there's still other ways to live your life that are still full, that are still meaningful. I've seen stories about couples who had trouble conceiving and didn't have children, and then pay for, like, pay for birthday parties in an orphanage, or somehow end up supporting kids in a different way. So you can kind of channel your grief into something good, and rely on family if you need to. There is a community out there, and no one thinks of you as a failure. This is not your failure. It's not something that is your fault. It's no one's fault. So, just be gentle to yourself, be kind, and just know that there are other people out there like you. There is a community. We're small, but we exist, and we should really lean on each other more for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love, I was so excited, as I said, when we started this conversation, I was so excited when Aliza introduced us because I I think it's deeply important to share stories of people who their lives didn't turn out as planned and
Yeah.
who live very fulfilling lives, and to show people that it's gonna be okay. It may not be the okay you thought, but there is so much wonderfulness out there
Yes.
that it just you don't need to stay stuck in that, like, you know, like, sort of, like, vision, that single-minded vision of the way you thought it was going to be.
Right. I agree. And I was also so excited when Aliza introduced us because I've been following your organization on Facebook. I see Aliza's post all the time, and I really think you are doing fabulous, fabulous work. You're taking out a lot of the stigmas and like your what's it called? Taking out the taboo. Like your tagline, that's the word I was thinking of. You really take away the stigma, you open conversations, you give people a platform to really allow them to share their stories and let other people know that they're not alone and that this is unfortunately very common. But, so thank you for giving everyone the platform. It's really, really amazing work.
Look, I couldn't do it without people like you. So that's where we are. Thank you, Susan,
Thank
so
you.
much for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening. If you have any comments about this episode or would like to suggest a future episode, please reach out at 917-382-0422 or send us an email at info@iwassupposedtohaveababy.org or info@iwsthab.org. And please don't forget to like, rate, and review so we can continue spreading the support to the wider Jewish community.